Welcome back, or welcome to the Success Times Happiness podcast. I am Richard Thompson, and today's guest is Grant Breese. Grant is a UK national living here in Australia, and he is a coach for men in their 40s to help them with their physical and mental health. He has helped hundreds of people in his career be better versions of themselves, both physically and mentally. And I'm looking forward to sitting down with him and picking his brain about the tools and ways that he goes about his business. So sit back and enjoy the conversation with Grant. What do middle-aged men, what are they up against when it comes to physical and mental health in this moment of time?
If we're going by the numbers, it's not a great time to be a man in your 40s. I'm not too aware of what the stats are in Australia, but I'm pretty sure that men under 40 in the UK, one of the biggest causes of death is suicide. There's a lot of reasons for that, but I think the inability for men to be able to express themselves, to know what they need to do to improve physical and mental health, and having that masculinity stamp on them can be very, very difficult. It's very difficult not to generalise, because obviously there are a lot of men that do and are proactive about their health, but if you're going to believe a stereotype, I think men in their 40s, when it comes to physical health as well as mental health, have a tendency to bury their heads in the sand, not really be very proactive about their health, even if they're aware that they do have a problem. Physical and mental health problem. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed. And I think that's probably why I'm in the space that I'm in. I think if I can be a voice and I can share my own experiences and other people's experiences, and that means that somebody else can tell their story as well, I think that's a positive outlook and a good process to the kind of coaching that I do.
And so tell me about that. Where does that passion for you stem from in terms of helping others to better their mental and physical health?
It probably came from me as I was aging, and I became more aware of this kind of undertow of poor mental health in men in their 40s and suicide. And I think as I approached 40, I became much more consciously aware of, am I going to be, one of those numbers? Is that going to be me? Certainly from a lot of stuff that I was reading, it seemed like a great many men weren't aware of what was happening until it's too late. And I think from a personal perspective, I can understand that now. The job of us all, I think, regardless of age, to make sure that we are vocal about mental health and physical health. If you've got a sore elbow, or you go to a doctor or a physio, but for some reason, if you're a man in your 40s and you might have a mental health issue, or you're aware that something's wrong, you might not do that. And you might not follow that through.
How much is it going into the way that you look at yourself? Or is that naivety that you're talking about is because you just, these people who are susceptible to that just refuse to introspection, and they have a difficult relationship with themselves, or a non-existent one. So when it gets challenging, when things change in life, or life throws curveballs and they struggle with that, whether that's a death of a family member or whatever, they react in a way where they just don't have a relationship with themselves. So therefore that's where they're coming from. It's a place of real insecurity rather than... So is that like, I guess my question is like for you is, where do you start with helping someone with dealing with that?
I think it's always difficult with a start point, because you can't help anybody until that they agree that they want help. Whether it's a training program, losing weight, so that's the biggest obstacle that you're going to come across. I think the reason for this is, yes, not a very good understanding of self, but I think there's a lot of societal pressures and norms and pigeonholes that men feel that they need to wedge themselves into. And I think we become experts at almost having not a schizophrenic, way, but we'll have a external persona and how we are with others, and we have this internal self that is not what we project, and I think that can be quite damaging.
And is that projection in trying to uphold those societal values or societal views of what the role should be or that person should be in that environment, you're thinking?
To show vulnerability or weakness, I think in men, there's a lot of men still aren't comfortable with that. I think that causes problems in itself when you need help, because you don't have the tools to be able to reach out to people. I think that causes problems not only for you as a person, but for the people that you interact with, for how happy you can be in your life and what you're doing. And I think, there'll be men listening to this now that are giving the persona that life is great, but inside they're in pieces, and they'll carry that on. Some men, I'm sure, will carry that on their whole lives. And manage it until the day that they pass away. But other people won't be able to do that. And at some point, a problem will arise that they need to address. Otherwise, they're going to end up being a statistic, and nobody wants that.
You don't go down that path, that dark rabbit hole. There's no intent from a good place or in your early 20s, 30s, whatever the situation is, but you don't intend to go down that rabbit hole of the point of no return or shit, how did I even get here? It's almost like a death of 1,000 cuts. Now, the difficulty or the scary bit in my view or my thoughts were that you have one person who has, that's not aligned. His internal state is not aligned with the external, what he's projecting, right? So therefore, it's, in my view, it's like, you've got to do that internal work to fix that. Now, there's someone who, like you said, could manage that for the rest of their life and don't have significant events or the traumatic events that happen in their life. But then there is someone who that'll be a triggering event, go down that black hole and be a statistic. What would you be saying though? Because neither person would know, but I guess both people would know in that situation that they've got it under control.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think you can become so good at masking the problem, it's like it doesn't exist anymore. And you're like become so good at this projecting an external vision of who I am that you forget that actually there's this other internal representation of yourself that is in pieces. And I think that is massively common. From a personal perspective, I always saw myself as resilient and strong, and I had all these attributes that were, propelling me forwards in my career and in my life, and then to find out that actually that wasn't the case. I'd just become a world-class professional at going, hey, this is me, look how great I am, look how happy I am, and I've been doing it for such a long time that all those broken bits and pieces of the jigsaw that I needed to put back together to understand who I was were just, like in a heap. And I come across that quite often now with male clients that I take on board, and we do like an onboarding week, and they, we have little questionnaires and stuff, and they say everything is okay, but it's quite obvious as you go in and you start working with them that stuff isn't. But they're not in a position, I'm not a psychologist, and they're not in a position to talk to me, and I'm not qualified in that area. So it does become difficult. So then it's down to me to use the skills that I do have and my ability to coach and communicate and help them with nutrition and training and getting that fitting around their life, that hoping that puts them in a place that then they can go, well, okay, maybe I need to go and fix this part as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And obviously there's so much research surrounding diet and exercise to helping mental health. And that's probably, and I hadn't thought about that, but it's probably a little bit of both of just moving and eating well will help your mindset.
Yeah, without a doubt.
But also it opens up the opportunity and maybe a little bit of self-love and that investment into yourself to then go, actually, I do need help and I'm open for that because I'm open to improve. Whereas if you're sedentary and eating hot chips every day, you are not in that position of going, almost not even that position of self-valuing, like putting enough value on yourself to go, I deserve help.
Yeah.
Because you're not even believing you deserve exercise or you don't deserve good choices.
Yeah, and I think there's a flip side to that almost where exercise becomes a coping mechanism. So you're doing your training or running, whatever it is, your gym, because it makes you feel good, but it's papering over the cracks of what is actually going on. And it's very hard then to figure out what comes first. As a person, are you aware that this is a coping mechanism? I'm sure you know that, periods where you're not able to train, what effect does that have on your mood? Working with top class athletes in the past and, a period of inactivity or training, mood straight down. Is that because training is beneficial to mental health, or is it because exercise is a coping mechanism for a problem that person may or may not have with their mental health?
Yeah. Or the mood goes down because you're giving it space. You don't have that distraction.
Yeah.
So you're now in a place of full observance of what your own internal issues are, and that's why the mood drops.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're sweating and moving and going to the gym and coming home and then going for a bike ride or something, and then you're like, yeah, I'm too busy to think about the shadow.
Yeah.
And but on top of that, I feel great because I'm moving, and obviously diet, as you very well see, diet follows the exercise. So you're more inclined to eat well by moving. Going to that place of exercise and good eating, and then peeling back from there to go, well, what is it actually? What am I not tackling because I'm sort of trying to distract myself? At least you're distracting yourself with good behavior.
Yeah.
And behavior that will help you.
The mind-body connection is stronger than we give it credit for most of the time, myself included. Not addressing issues that you have. It was explained to me once like a big bag full of water and you're just sticking plasters over all these things and the water keeps spraying out and you're sticking more plasters over until eventually the bag just breaks. That bag breaking is your mind will put some physical issues going on to try and make you take notice. Again, I'm not a psychologist, but I feel that this is something quite common. Again, it's something that I've had with my clients and with myself that get to a point where, from a personal perspective, I was having lots of physiological symptoms. And I was like, well, something's wrong. So I need to go to the doctor. Test. You're fine. You're in a perfect bill of health. There's nothing wrong with you. And eventually, after having to give my logical mind this kind of tick box of it isn't this, and having a good support network and doctors around me going, look, we need to finish these tests because if we don't, you're immediately going to go, oh, it must be that. So you finish all the tests and then you have to accept that all these physiological things that were happening to you was a direct result of your poor mental health. So it's actually the mental health side of things you need to address to allow you to get back to that point. But if your coping mechanism is exercise and your brain has gone, right, here's some physiological symptoms that's going to stop you exercising, then you've got no choice. Or I had no choice. I was in denial. I'm fine. It's got to be physical. It's not mental 100%.
Yeah. Until
my mind just went, look, you've got to deal with this or, you're going to be in problems. And I think because I'm the type of person that I am, I want to feel good. I want to feel fit. I want to feel healthy because I understand all the benefits that come from that with the rest of your life, knock-on effect with relationships and work and all that stuff. So much easier when you're in good mental space.
Yeah.
that I was very proactive with that. But I think a lot of men get into that position where they can't exercise because they've got physiological issues that have been brought on by poor mental health, and they're just choosing to ignore it. And it's the body's way of going, look, this is your opportunity to step up and do something about this. And I think the men that don't are the men that unfortunately end up as one of those statistics, or depression, or...
Why do you think people are so reluctant to start that process of self-evaluation or self-discovery?
It's scary stuff.
But why?
Again, I would say go back to these kind of societal norms and pressures about what men are supposed to be. And I think, using an example of stereotypes and social pressures, if you're, let's say, wiping the slate clean, you're a man in your 40s, you'll suddenly decide that one day, my health is important, physical and mental. I'm going to get a trainer, I'm going to start exercising. Hey, I might even go and get some therapy just to see where I'm at. The society would say that you're having a midlife crisis. I would say that is a time you're having midlife growth. You're deciding that you're, going to train and exercise. Like, what happened to me wasn't a crisis, it was a time of growth. But a lot of people don't understand that, and they go, well, are you all right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm better as a result of this. This has been not a crisis. It's been growth, and growth is good, right? It's what we want all the time, because that makes us better people and makes us better for our partners and our lives and our jobs and our kids and all the stuff that's important.
Is the culmination of it's obviously no coincidence that it's around that late 30s, early 40s. You've got your career sorted. I'm talking about clients of yours. You've got your career path there. You've got an established family. Your kids might be getting into school now, and it's that period of time where you're like, I guess you're no longer chasing life's goals or life's, I guess you're not chasing the rabbit anymore. It's like, okay, I've found my place. And that's when it hits home, maybe, to go.
You've probably got a job that's keeping, a roof over your head. You've got a big mortgage. You've got all those things. Whereas in your 30s, you have less responsibilities. Chances are in your 30s and 20s, you may have been exercising more as well. And in your 40s,
you're probably a bit more tactile in terms of direction too in your 20s and 30s. That in the sense, it's like, well, if I don't like here, I'm going this way.
More freedom.
Yeah. But now you're sort of locked in this sort of hamster wheel almost. And that's probably when people are like, oh, shit.
Start questioning where they are and who they are and what they're doing.
And then maybe it is that desire for growth rather than a crisis, as you say. Like, it's looking at it as the opportunity to grow as an individual and opening the door to all the scary skeletons that will present, but being a willing participant in that, and to say, well, it is. I think it is scary because of the unknown of where you could go, and I think also, like, you're in that position, and there are a lot of what you would probably like to consider as non-negotiables in your life. And then to peel all those layers back and to think, I'm not happy in the place that I'm at right now, which means that something needs to change, either myself or my environment, and that's scary.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, the non-negotiables are external. They're all stuff that's out here, and it's easier to put focus on that. I must look after this, and I must make sure that all these things are happening how they need to, and sacrifice you and what you're trying to do and how you're trying to understand yourself, or your ability to go and start exercising or speak to somebody about mental health. And that's an excuse I hear quite often. I don't have time to do this. My focus is on my wife and my kids and my work, and I have family commitments and job stresses. I don't have time to look after me. And it's like, what? What's going to happen is you're going to get to a point where you have to be proactive because you're in a problem. No, you don't have a choice. And at that point, it's like you could have done this 5 years ago.
And potentially avoided the situation that you're in now, for sure. And that, I know meditation has a lot. I mean, I do a lot of meditation, and that does come under that category of looking after yourself. But there's that saying that, like, if you don't have time to meditate 10 minutes a day, then you need to meditate an hour a day. Like, if you don't have time to exercise for half an hour a day, then you need to find an hour because you need it more than anyone else.
Yeah.
So how do you cut through with your clients when they come to you and say, Grant, like, that's all well and good, mate, but I don't have time. I have all these responsibilities. How do I etch out? And immediately I sort of think it's prioritizing, which is that's the failing point. But how do you see that?
I think the most important thing is to go and meet people where they're at. So you need to step into their world, actually figure out what's going on, how much stress they've got, how much time is available. Because a lot of the time people have preconceptions about the time that they need to do something. So they might have, for example, I need 4 hours a week in the gym and I have to cook all these different meals. And it's like, well, no, you don't have time for that now. So they start with a half an hour session twice a week, a walk around the block with the kids. You've got to step into somebody else's world, figure out where they are, and then create something from that expands over time. Because if you've got this, hey, I know this program works and it's great because this guy did it and look at that, but you just drop it into somebody else's life, they're having to radically change everything in their life. They're already in an environment that's massively stressful. They feel that they've got no time. Most people do have time. They just need to find it. They're probably doing lots of pointless shit a lot. And once you can meet them in that space, start to educate them about, don't worry, if you've been doing nothing for the last 5 years and you walk once a day for 30 minutes for the next 3 weeks, you've done more in the 3 weeks than you've done the last 3 weeks. If you could then do a 30-minute workout on top of that and then start to eat more vegetables, drink more water. And it's weird because a lot of people go, yeah, but that's not enough.
Yeah.
And you go, yeah, it's right now. That's
it's more
enough.
than you're doing.
Yeah, it's enough.
Yeah.
Let's do that and then
find it in the minutiae.
Yeah, and build on that. And you'd be amazed how, that's what I love about my job is give people the tools and you'd be amazed how far people go. It's a cool thing just to be able to be, and people go, oh, thank you. You go, I don't really do anything. All I've gone is gone, look, I'm good at figuring out what we can do to help you with the time that you've got available right now.
Yeah. And I guess it comes back to also intention, right? So that person you might be suggesting you need to drink, I don't know, X amount of liters of water a day, right? Hydration's huge. But in the past, they wouldn't have thought about hydration. Generally, probably underhydrate, let's face it.
Yeah.
But the way you work with them, and so cleverly or so impactfully, is that you have to say, all right, I need you to hydrate properly for you. And so it's the shape of intention now to go, I'm hydrating because I'm prioritizing my health. And it's not, not trying to etch out 3 hours a day to do, a massive CrossFit exercise. You need you to drink water, right? It's not rocket science, but it's that intention of, I'm drinking this for me. And that's that neural pathway change of going, I'm actually doing things for me. And that opens up going, yeah, well, I also want to walk. I'm going to go walking. I want to do exercise. And then you just layer those prioritizing yourself, because you can see the value for the rest of your world when you do that.
Yeah, and I think that being proactive as well gives you some form of control back. So you don't feel like you're a hamster on a wheel, or you're just a passenger on this life, right? What's going on? I'm just along for the ride here. This is, Yeah. So if you can give somebody some knowledge, some control, and then see how far they want to go with it. And a lot of the time you'll do things and it won't work for people. And they'll push back. There'll be resistance there, which happens near enough with every client. And then it's about, right, why is this a problem? Why is there so much resistance getting you to do this task? Let's discuss it. Let's figure this out. Because if this isn't going to work, we need to find another way to do something. But for the majority of people, where their health is, those small changes make quite a big difference. And when they start doing that, it becomes self-motivating because people feel better.
Yeah.
And then they all have these little light bulb moments going, wow, yeah, this is great. And, this is brilliant. And, what can we do next? And, I don't feel like I've come that far. 6 weeks ago, you were doing nothing. Now you're doing 70,000 steps a week. You're doing 3 half-an-hour workouts. You're eating better. You're hydrated. That's massive.
What do you say to people who who have tried in the past to get on the health bandwagon or to get on the putting yourself first and fail? Because we have that whole external projection to the world of who we are, whether that's in real life or in social media, and but internally we carry every failure that we are only aware of, right? And so you might look at me as the successes that I've achieved, but you have no idea how many failures that are sitting with me. And that could be as simple as I'm going to walk the dog every day, or not even exercise. I'm going to floss my teeth every day because I know that's valuable for my oral hygiene, but I don't, and that's a failure, right? That's a cross on my shoulders. And you do that, extrapolate that over every year for the last 30, 40 odd years. I'm coming to the table as someone who has failed 90% of the time with every promise I have made to myself. And the big ones for men, I presume, would be eating healthy. The state that my body is in, it's terrible. And I promised myself in January that I would go to the gym but fail. How do you break that down and cut through that prior history of failure, and so that they can be successful in perpetuity?
Failure is great. Right, there's no two ways about it. We learn way, way, way more from a failure than we do from successes. So I would say, and I say this to, again, 99% of my clients, what have you done in the past that's worked? And they'll tell you, yeah, I did this. And, it might not be in my eyes that it's worked. They might have done a diet for 15 weeks and they lost 2 stone and then put it back on. To me, that's not success. But they will be able to tell you what they've been successful at in those past diets. Then you say, tell me what have you failed at? What did you learn from that? And they're telling you, they're building a program for you already. They're telling you, counting calories didn't work for me. I hated all the tracking stuff, or we did this diet and that was really cool. And, and already you're taking all the pieces out and formulating something you can put together for them. And then it's just about saying, if the goal was to floss their teeth every day for the month and they only manage 20 days, that's not a failure. It's 20 days more than you did before. And I think reframing how people process success and failure, rather than if you fail, you give up, you chuck all the toys out of the pram, it's over, I'm done, never doing this again, rather than going, okay, why did that not work? Is there somebody that can help me? Can I speak to a coach? Right, I did this and it didn't work. And then you just press reset and you go again. And I always say, to my clients, sometimes you just got to, nobody wants to get up and do that training session. You've been there, it's cold, it's wet, you feel like rubbish. But you just switch your brain off and you just do it. And I think that is such a valuable skill, because ultimately it's in those moments that you succeed more and you fail less. Even if you have a ropey workout or you don't eat as well as you should have done that day, you're chipping away at it. And once you can do that over time, you can't fail to be successful.
Yeah, I think that becomes rewiring the perception of failure, and in your history as well, not just in the present, and to be able to deal with that and think, that common quote of like, when you don't win, you learn. I think if you can get to that place, then the fear of setting something up like flossing your teeth every day is less scary, because the idea of putting a goal out there or doing something that you don't think is possible, or you know that is good for you, but you've had so much history of not doing it, and not achieving, you're like, well, what's the point? But if you can reframe your relationship with failure to the fact that, well, I will succeed, but if I don't, along the way I learn rather than lose, then I think you're in a much stronger position to set yourself up for that journey, rather than going, well, either we win or we lose, and if we lose, the toys are out of the cot.
I think from a coaching perspective as well, that I've failed. If I'm with a client and that program's not work out, that's my failure, not theirs. They've not had a program that's been suitable for them. And I see it all the time. Clients come to me and I say, oh, what have you done in the past? And they go, I did this, this and this. And I'm going, right, okay, that didn't work out then? No. And to me, it's a no-brainer. Then that was never, ever going to work for them. But, there's a lot of fitness professionals out there that just about sales and not about success, and I think it's unfortunate because we need to do better. We really do. I think, the people that really need help out there with their health are people that are struggling. They're not people like you and I, which, enjoy every facet of exercise that we do, right? They're people that struggle to find value in it, to struggle to understand the benefits from it because they've never felt them before. It's easy.
So where's your first step? What's the first step for someone in that position for you?
Start small, and you've got to throw this kind of mindset of six-pack or bust workouts programs in the bin. This idea that's health, that's where we should all be aspiring to, I think is damaging. And I think, if somebody sees that as, I've had a can of Coke, full fat Coke, that's it, my program's over. And it's like, no,
May as well bring that.
It does. You've had one can of Coke, who cares? Carry on. It's not you're not any less of an individual as for having a piece of cake or a can of beer, or it's that in moderation, and you can still enjoy those things and improve your health massively. If you're on a continuum and this is the peak of physical health, whatever that is, and this is, the worst, most people only need to be a little bit further up to lead happier, more fulfilled lives.
Yeah, I think also like it's the idea that you can't win health either. Like, there's no destination to go, yeah, I fucking crushed health. That's tick. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's a forever game. And I think when people go, oh, I just want to lose 10 kilograms, then I will have won health. It's just not the case.
No.
And so therefore it's a understanding like what does that process, the forever process, look like for you? And that's moderation. That's getting things in order so that you can enjoy life. And it's also, I think, peeling back for those people who are sitting there going, oh, I just don't have any motivation to do anything. It's like, well, there is some discomfort there. Otherwise you wouldn't be feeling discomfort, as in you want something better for yourself or for your life. And it's what good health and good exercise and health, what that provides, that's what needs to be tapped into.
Yeah.
Rather than, like, no one cares for a six-pack. It's what the perception of the six-pack does, right? It's like they don't want to lose 20 kilos. It's what the 20 kilos off them provides for them. So it's maybe setting up. And I think it's also breaking down that identity of, well, just someone who doesn't achieve my goals that I set for myself. So then I won't set goals for myself because I don't want to fail. But it's being able to truly believe that you can redefine who you are and redefine any of that whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
And that everyone fails,
Yeah.
right? Like, fuck.
Yeah.
Everyone misses the mark.
Well, who's it who said, I failed my way to success? Is it Edison or somebody like that?
Yeah, right.
You know, and
But that comes back to the perception, right?
Yeah.
So for people who don't achieve much or they don't set themselves up to try to, they look at the other people in the world and go, they're successful, but I'm not. And it's like, that person is exactly the same person as you are. We're all human and everyone fails. No one has just gone through life successfully without failure. In fact, I would argue that the people who are the most successful have probably been the most failure, the worst at failing as well.
yeah.
By virtue of that pushback, by virtue of pushing the boundaries of what's possible. And then you go, oh no, I've gone too far here. I've absolutely failed. But that doesn't stop them from aiming higher.
Yeah. You know, the goal is too far. It's like, okay, I want to lose that 10 kilos. And all that person's focusing on is the 10 kilos. And they're not got an athlete mindset. So as way, you know, probably when you're training and you're out running and cycling, 90% of the time you're thinking about that event, right? Whereas that average person, if they're just thinking about the event or losing that 10 kilos, it makes it much harder. What they really need to be thinking about is, did I get my steps in today? Yeah. Did I eat did I eat better than I did yesterday? Have I done my exercise this week? And do all those little process things, and then that will happen. But a lot of the time, you also need to dig into why do they want that 10 kilos? What's that going to give you? How's your life going to be different? You know, what's happening? How do you feel when you're 10 kilos lighter? What are you doing? Who are you hanging out with? What activities are you doing that you weren't doing before? And a lot of the time, people won't be able to answer any of those questions. And you're like, well, why is that goal so important to me? And it's not important to them. It's what they believe that they should be doing. Sure. And you're never going to achieve any goal that you think you should be doing. You've got to want to do it. And it's got to give you something back. It's got to make you feel confident. It's got to, lower your blood pressure, improve your cholesterol levels, improve your mental health. You know, there's got to be something there that's giving you your why. Yeah.
And I mean, I do think about the end goal, but it's interesting because the way that I go about it is the process driven. So it's like, I'm just focused on making today really, really good and knowing that if I can make today really good, and that's relative for everyone. But if you can focus on today and stack today with the next day and the next day and the next day, and then all of a sudden the goal, you're so far past that goal because it's no longer, you're not actually the goal is not actually that. The goal is developing that process that you can sustain in perpetuity and that you'll absolutely love. But yeah, I totally accept and agree that whole intrinsic bit. And, if only I was 10 kilos lighter, and then it's like, well, why? And if it's not driven inside you, then of course, 3 p.m. comes and you're scoffing down Tim Tams and, and everything, because it's the desire's not there. And you're always going to get those hurdles and those points of time where most people quit, right? The difficult bits, and you go, this is where most people will tap out here. And it could be a 3 p.m. or whatever, and you've just got to, if the why is strong enough, you'll sort of that's the house takes care of itself. This has been awesome, man. So we'll end up with a couple of questions for you. Number one tip for someone searching for success in their life?
I would say enjoy the process. Make sure it's a goal that you want. Understand that if you don't get there, you'll still might have been successful. But I think success comes from enjoying the process, whatever goal that may be, I think.
Beautiful. Number one tip for someone searching for happiness in their life?
It's going to come from you internally. Happiness doesn't come from external stuff. If you're happy yourself, you're much more accepting of other things that go on in your life that you can have influence over positively, I think.
Must-read book.
Must-read book is a book called Happy Sexy Millionaire by a guy called Stephen Bartlett. I say that book because it's a story of him, and he's a very successful CEO, millionaire now. He's got like a zillion people, podcasts and all the rest of it. But I read his book a few years ago, and it resonated with me because he was on this journey. He wrote in his diary that he wanted to be a happy, sexy millionaire and the Range Rover and $100 million, whatever it was, and spent his life to 28 achieving that, sacrificing everything, believing that it was going to give him this fulfillment. Anyway, long story short, he got there, it didn't. And he's been on a kind of journey ever since to understand why that was.
Most inspirational person in your life?
Met so many amazing people. I've been very lucky to meet a lot of very, very inspirational people. I can think of a few. I was heavily involved in motorcycling at one point, and I worked with a guy who we won the British Championship together a few times. His resilience, I've never met anybody who was as resilient as him. Like, he would fall off, win the next race. He had nearly a life-ending accident. I went to see him in hospital. They were putting the halo on him because he'd broken his back. And he's getting me to talk to his surgeon about getting back into training and stuff.
What's his name?
Shane Byrne.
Okay.
So yeah, amazing guy. During that period when I was trying to get into that field, I would go to races and chat to people and stuff. And one day I was listening to the commentator, and he said there was a guy in the race I was watching that had no legs. And I was just like, I couldn't get my head around the fact that he was on a motorbike with no legs. So I thought, I got to meet this guy. So I went to meet him, and sure enough, he had no legs below the knee. He had them blown off in Afghanistan by an IED. So I just made the assumption that, this was something that he wanted to get back into after his, having his legs removed. And it wasn't. He just decided that I'm going to race motorbikes now. And that just blew my mind. And his name's Murray Hambrough, and he's gone on to open up his own successful CrossFit gyms in the UK, and had a terrible time of it with family and lost his 2-year-old son, but resilience and very inspirational dude. One of those people that when you're around you're just like, wow. So definitely those two, and probably my 8-year-old son. Mainly because he's got an unbelievable skill to always be happy, and that has a knock-on effect to other people. And it always kind of blows my mind to see that and the effect that it has on me as well. So yeah, lots of people around to be inspired by.
Finally, one guest, famous or not, in any field that you would like to see me interview.
Stephen Bartlett would be a good one, yeah, if you get him. Oh, I don't know. Does it have to be an Aussie?
No.
Because I was thinking about Aussies, I definitely, enjoy hearing people's stories that have had, trial and adversity and come back from that. And I've been following Quade Cooper. I've always been a fan of his, and he had quite a big comeback, really, playing for Australia, and then had an injury. And I kind of like what he's got to say about life and aspirations and stuff.
Awesome. Put it on the list. Reach out to him. Grant Breese, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. You're welcome.
That's right. So that was Grant Breese. Such a lovely guy, and such a wonderful opportunity to sit down with him and extract the ways that he goes about his business in helping men achieve their physical and mental health. A lot of really important points that I think we touched on, and hopefully you all took something away from that can be implemented into your lives. Thank you so much. Please share this episode with people that you think will have benefited from it. And until next time, peace.